Ronna McDaniel joins us now, the Republican National Committee chairwoman. Ronna, very good to have you. I don't know whether anything that you heard from Brenda Snipes eases or adds to your concerns, but what do you think?
Well, I think she's incompetent at best, and I think this is intentional at worst. I mean, here's the thing, Neil. She was required by law, Florida statute, once the polls closed on Tuesday night, to give a count of all the absentee and early votes that had come in within 30 minutes of the polls closing. She did not abide by that law. She didn't tell us how many early votes had come in. Early votes stopped on November 4th in Florida, so she didn't give us a number. Then she didn't abide by law and give updates on the count every 45 minutes once the polls had closed. So she's let these numbers be out there nebulous for days and days and days, and the numbers just keep going further and further against Rick Scott. How do people have confidence in the process? How do people have confidence in the votes when you have a supervisor who has been disingenuous and has not provided the totals, which was required by law? That's why we went to court yesterday.
Did all the other counties provide? There are 67 counties in Florida. Is it your understanding that all 67, minus Broward, provided these, total early voting counts, absentee ballot count, whatever, early on? And only
all
Broward
of them
did not.
abided by it except Broward and Palm Beach. Susan Booker, the Palm Beach County Clerk, and they also found another 15,000 votes. And she did not abide. Yesterday, a court order came down saying you have to, by 7 o'clock tonight on Friday, give your vote totals to both counties. Now, Broward did comply with that. Palm Beach still has not.
All right, we should argue that's important, because just to know the vote totals, forget about breaking them down and who voted for whom, et cetera. But if you don't know the vote totals, you don't know the universe of ballots you're working with, essentially, right?
No, and it's a moving line. That's why it's important to know who voted early and get those vote totals, so then you know where your election day voters are. But when you leave it out there, it leaves a lot of room for people to say you're doing something unscrupulous. Why are you not letting the voters know, or the candidates know, how many votes were submitted before Election Day? Why aren't you letting us know? Why? Because now suddenly the numbers keep shifting. Suddenly these many more voters. I mean, remember, they're in possession of ballots. They have enough ballots for everybody who comes to vote. But what happens to those ballots that don't get voted? It is very concerning. And here's the problem, Neil. It's going to be a concerning thing for every Republican right now that it's only happening in 2 Democrat counties. Every other county, even those affected by the Panhandle, got it done. But these 2 counties still can't seem to get it done. Is it because Rick Scott was ahead by 55,000 and now he's only ahead by 14,000? It's just ridiculous. Every American should be concerned by this.
All right, so that's why, just to understand why Republicans are concerned about an automatic recount, because unless this issue is settled, I guess the fear is that it would be or could be a rigged process.
I'm not as concerned about a recount. I ran a recount here in Michigan. A recount's they change the total very little. What I'm more concerned is that we don't know the total ballots. And these county clerks, these county supervisors aren't giving us the total number of ballots, because
right,
that gives them a lot more wiggle room.
I understand that, and excuse my ignorance then if the governor is opposed to this recount, I understand his reasoning, and then that he's not quite sure everyone's playing by the rules here. Are you afraid that it makes him look and make Republicans look like they're trying to hide votes?
No, we want every vote counted, but what we don't want are illegal votes being counted that diminish or dilute the votes of voters who did it the right way and who were legally allowed to vote. I mean, these are votes that should be invalid, many of them. You just saw her say she mixed 20 invalid votes with 205, and she doesn't know where they are. I mean, they have been so incompetent throughout this process, but I don't know if it's incompetence or if it's intent, because to have the Palm Beach County Supervisor now defy a court order when they said they are in violation of the state constitution and to not give those vote totals last night. What is going on in Florida? You know, you have Democrats concerned about election meddling and collusion, and we are too as Republicans. But it is happening right now in Florida in 2 of the major Democrat counties, and Democrats are nowhere to be found. This should be something that concerns every American, that every vote is counted legally and that the process is transparent and fair.
All right, there are different cases going on in some of these other states, but it's not just Florida where counts are tight, but in Georgia, in Arizona, in Mississippi, of course, we're going to have a runoff election that might or might not tip to the Republican candidate. But what it could mean, Ron, is that seats that were thought to be gained by Republicans, it's too early to say one way or the other, might not be. Are you worried then that the big news that you got out of Tuesday night, where you increased your numbers in the Senate, doesn't materialize? And then we're left with an election, a midterm election, where Democrats gained mightily in the House. Republicans kind of kept the status quo in the Senate. It's a whole different read on Tuesday night in that event, right?
Well, number one, we had a great night with the 4 races that we won in the Senate: Tennessee, North Dakota, Missouri, and Indiana. And that puts us +1 in the Senate, which is defying history. And remember, in the House, we had record retirements, over 43, in a very difficult year where Democrats outspent our candidates 2 or 3 to 1. So I feel good about where the results stand right now, even without Florida and Arizona in the tallies. What I am concerned about is this habitual problem we continue to have with large Democrat counties in big states that can't get their reports done on time and can't get the election votes counted. It's happening in Arizona, it's happening in Georgia, and it's happening in Florida. We need to be able to administer elections in a way that we can get the votes counted and submitted. Why are all the other counties in the country able to do that? Why does it always happen in Broward County? And now we're having it in Florida and Arizona as well. This is a concern, and it's why Republicans are concerned. And Democrats need to join this too, because if we don't have faith in our election systems and that it can be administered fairly, without partisanship, without transparency, we're going to have a real problem in this country. And so this is something that should be bipartisan. I think Bill Nelson should be speaking out against the incompetency. I mean, the court said they're violating the Constitution in Florida.
Well, he's not. He's not, as you know. He's arguing that Governor Scott is trying to hide votes.
Because they're fine with it if it works on their behalf. But if they win an election through corrupt, meddling, or validating invalid signatures, that's not a way to win an election. And that's not good for our democracy long term. And every single person should be calling their clerks. They should call Florida. They should let Bill Nelson know. This is a time where we need to engage. And I'll tell you what, it's eye-opening for me how we need to go forward to make sure that this doesn't happen again.
Real quickly then, Ronna, real quickly, whatever you decide on that and how that is all settled, the issue of the ballot itself, which was written off on by Democrats and Republicans across the state in some of these counties, Broward included, is that it was a very convoluted, confusing ballot. Now, whether that affected votes is anyone's guess. But what happened to simplification there in the state where they were going to try to make things clear, because that was an issue in 2000, and I've seen the ballots in some of these counties. Whoa, I mean, you have to be Albert Einstein to figure some of these things out. What the heck?
Well, and Brenda Snipes, this county clerk, has had issues of leaving ballot proposals off ballots, duplicating ballots and sending them out. She's been found to have opened absentee ballots without anyone present. I mean, this is somebody who's had a habitual problem.
Well, but I'm talking about the ballot itself that was written off by both parties, and they can't get their act together to get a simple ballot.
Yeah, it's a state-level issue. I mean, the states oversee their ballot process, and the secretaries of state do that. But everybody should be looking at this. I mean, we want to make it in a way that people can understand the ballots and they can vote. But right now, the issue is we have 2 county supervisors in Florida breaking the law and hurting the process right now and hurting our democracy.
All right, Ronna McDaniel, thank you very much.